Hello, Rachel Gregg here, and thank you for joining me today. In this video, I'll be showing you how to create this card, along with some other embossing techniques and ways to use the Darkroom Door Christmas Trees rubber stamp set. This set has 3 different trees, both in a large size and a small size. Each tree has been hand-drawn and can be used individually on their own, or they can be used together using a 3-step stamping technique. Also included in this stamp set are different size stars that can be used on top of the trees or to decorate a background. Then there are some smaller round stamps which are intended to be used as baubles or decorations for your trees. I've pulled out some green shades of archival ink, and I'm using there's the sap green and leaf green, fern green, olive and library green. I've stamped one of the trees using the different ink colours, and here's what it looks like using the sap green and the leaf green. Then here's what it looks like using the olive, the fern green and the library green. Now I want to share how you can layer the trees on top of each other. To do a 3-step stamping process, I've chosen to use sap green, fern green and library green ink colours. For the first layer, I'm using the heaviest tree, the one with the thickest brush strokes, to get the biggest ink coverage on the paper, but using the lightest ink colour, which is the sap green. Next, I'm using the middle tree with the fern green ink pad. I'm just eyeballing it when I line it up, but you could use a stamp positioner or a MISTI tool if you'd like precision stamping. However, as the artwork for all of these trees is freehand and whimsical, there are no real definite lines to be matched up, so it's very forgiving no matter whether you use a stamping block or a stamp positioner tool. So for the last layer, which is the most open tree, I'm using library green ink, which is the darkest ink of the green palette. As you can see, this just adds a nice finishing touch to the green layers. Now I'm stamping one of the stars at the top using a gold brilliance ink dewdrop ink pad. I'm then adding some dots for baubles over the tree. I'm noticing the ink isn't showing up as bright as I'd like, so I could either emboss it with some embossing powder or go over it with some gold stickles. So I'm choosing to use the stickles as that'll give a real shimmery look like real baubles on a tree. I've set it aside for a while, and this is what it looks like when the stickles have dried completely. Now I want to show you a variation on the 3-step stamping process, and this time I'm using 2 layers of green ink. First one is the sap green, then I'm using olive for the second layer. For the final layer with the open tree, rather than using a darker green ink, I want to make the lines look like gold tinsel wrapped around the tree, so I've stamped the tree with Distress embossing ink, and I'm embossing it with gold tinsel embossing powder. The gold really contrasts nicely against the green and makes it look like a little piece of tinsel. Another cool thing about this stamp set is you can also use the tree stamps individually. You don't always have to layer them up, as each tree is interesting enough to be used on their own. So here I am, I'm just inking up the most open tree with the Distress embossing ink and then embossing it with green tinsel embossing powder. It makes a really nice simple tree, and with the embossing it just gives it some extra sparkle. You can do the same with the fuller trees. Here's what the heaviest tree looks like when embossed with the green tinsel. And another fun idea is to make your own mix of embossing powders. I've mixed the green and the red tinsel embossing powders together to make a Christmas red and green combination. This means that both the red and the green colours will show through when the image is embossed. In this case, the red has shown up a bit more, but when you angle the card you can see the green coming through. It's like a red and green holographic effect. It's very cool and fun to make. So here are some of the stamped and embossed trees. The one on the left is just stamped with ink, and then the middle tree is the red and green embossing mix, and the tree on the right is embossed with green tinsel. So here's the middle tree embossed with the red-green mix and then with the green tinsel. And lastly, here are some samples using the open tree with the red and green embossing mix and the green embossing powder, plus I've also done one using just gold tinsel embossing powder for a more elegant look. Here's a quick look at the image where I laid the ink and the gold embossing together. Here's another fun tip for the Christmas trees set. There's a group of stars in this set that are designed in a way where you can nest them into each other to create a funky border. Here I'm just using the Gold Brilliance ink to stamp across a white card to create the border. Then I've trimmed out one of my embossed trees and laid it over the top and added a stamp star to the top of the tree. The Yuletide sentiment is from the Season's Greetings stamp set and just stamped straight onto the card using archival vermilion ink pad. So here are some finished cards. The left card here I've used a sentiment and a star from the Brushed Christmas Volume 1 stamp set and stamped it with fern green archival ink. For the gold card on the right, I haven't added a sentiment to this one. Instead, I've just wrapped some nice wide ribbon and tied it at the front. For this card, I stamped some of the open baubles using the Gold Brilliance ink. You can see how it just adds a nice Christmas touch to the tree. The sentiment is from the Season's Greetings stamp set, which you can see here. I'll link all of these supplies in the YouTube description below. And for this last card, I've added a star to the top of the tree and stamped a sentiment from the Brushed Christmas Volume 2 stamp set using the archival olive ink pad. I've also put the white cardstock through my sewing machine without any thread, just to add a little pinholes around the edge. It just gives a nice little border. For more stamping ideas, be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel, and if you're looking for any of the supplies I've used, you can find them on the Darkroom Door website or click on the store locator link to find a stockist near you. Thanks for watching.